My first experience with Special Olympics athletes was volunteering at one of the competition when I was still in college, and that was it was very rewarding because no matter what, win or lose, they always had a smile on their face. So I knew that this was something that I wanted to continue doing, for the rest of my life. So when I started teaching, that was one of the things, the school where I started teaching didn't have a Special Olympics program. So I brought that into that school, and I remember my first experience was with basketball. So I taught, my students, we competed in basketball. We went all the way to Jacksonville to compete in that first year teaching. And it was very challenging at first, because the parents, this was new for a lot of the parents, and they were, kind of hesitant, to allow their children to travel, and all the way to Jacksonville. So that was the first barrier that I had to, to break was, giving these parents a sense of, that safety, and that their children were going to be safe, and this was okay, and this is part of them growing up and being independent adults. So that became kind of like a habit for me, and also I'm very competitive, so I wanted my athletes to win all the time, not just for the experience of going to state and being part of the Olympics and coming home with a medal, but I wanted them to experience independence, being away from their parents for the weekend, doing everything on their own. A lot of my students, because I worked in an all-Hispanic school, the parents, kind of like this, their children are still tied to them to umbilical cord even at age, 18. So I had to start slowly, breaking that in, and it got to a point where parents would call me up and say, "Hey, when is the next trip?" Because they kind of got used to it, and my students, I still have a lot of the same students that I had 20 years ago are my students now still, because I work for an adult program now, and they get to come from age 22, and I have some that are 50. So some of those kids that I had back then when they were in high school are my team members now in my softball team, and they're doing things that otherwise they wouldn't have experienced. I have kids that are driving, they work, they travel on their own in public transportation, and I have Special Olympics to thank, part of that, because if I wouldn't have had that experience of actually seeing them be on their own, wake up in the morning, get ready, get dressed, be ready at 5 for a competition, and I don't think they would have been able to master all the other things that are doing now independently.